My wife said she needed space to find herself. She found my best friend instead. Posted to r/true off my chest. I'm a veterinarian. I've been one for 11 years now. I mention this because people often assume veterinarians are gentle souls, patient, nurturing, the kind of people who couldn't hurt a fly. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's exactly why I didn't see any of this coming. Maybe that's why, even now, 3 years later, I still can't quite protect myself from the people I let close. I'm writing this because my therapist suggested it might help. Process through expression, she says. I've been processing for 3 years. I'm not sure there's an end to it. But here goes. The beginning of the end. My wife and I were together for 12 years, married for 8. We met when I was in my final year of vet school, and she was finishing her master's in art history. She was everything I wasn't, spontaneous, artistic, emotionally expressive in ways that I, buried in textbooks and surgery rotations, had never learned to be. I thought we balanced each other. I thought that was the whole point. Looking back, I can see the distance that grew between us. The late nights at the clinic. The emergency calls that pulled me away from dinners. The way she started going to gallery openings alone because I was always too tired. I'm not making excuses for what happened, I'm just trying to understand it. My therapist says understanding isn't the same as excusing. I'm still learning the difference. She came to me one evening in late March, 3 years ago. I'd just gotten home from a difficult surgery, a golden retriever hit by a car, touch and go for hours. I saved him. I was exhausted but satisfied in that bone-deep way that only comes from doing good work. She was sitting at the kitchen table, and something in her posture made my stomach drop before she even spoke. I need to talk to you, she said. About us. Those 4 words. Every married person knows them. Knows the weight they carry. She told me she felt lost. That somewhere in the 8 years of our marriage, she'd stopped knowing who she was outside of being my wife. She said she needed space. Time. A trial separation to figure out who she is. I sat there, still in my scrubs, still smelling like antiseptic and dog hair, and I felt my world tilt sideways. But I loved her. God, I loved her so much. And love, I thought, meant supporting someone even when it hurt you. So I agreed. I told her I understood. I told her I'd give her whatever she needed. She moved out the next week. Rented a small apartment across town. We agreed to minimal contact. She needed the space to think, to grow, to discover herself without my presence influencing her decisions. I thought I was being a good husband. I thought patience and understanding would bring her back. Sometimes I wonder if I was a bad husband. If I drove her away. My therapist says that's normal. It doesn't stop me from wondering at 3 a.m. My best friend. I need to tell you about him. Because this story doesn't make sense without understanding who he was to me. We met freshman year of college. He was my roommate, a philosophy major with a terrible sense of humor and an even worse taste in music. We were opposites in almost every way, but somehow we clicked. 15 years of friendship. 15 years of inside jokes and shared memories and the kind of bond that I thought only existed between brothers. He was there when I got into vet school. He was there when I didn't think I'd make it through my internship. He was the best man at my wedding. He held my mother's hand at my father's funeral when I couldn't stop crying long enough to comfort her. When my wife asked for the separation, he was the first person I called. He came over that night with a six-pack and a willingness to listen. He sat on my couch, the couch my wife and I had picked out together, and he let me talk for hours. He didn't try to fix anything. He just listened. And when I finally ran out of words, he hugged me, and he said, "She'll come back, man. Just give her time. She'll figure out what she's got with you." Over the next 6 months, he was my lifeline. Weekly dinners. Late-night phone calls when I couldn't sleep. He'd check in on me constantly, always with the same message. Be patient, give her space, she'll realize what she's missing. I keep replaying every conversation. Every time he said, "She'll come back." Every time he hugged me while I cried. He knew. He knew the whole time. Update 1. The discovery. It was October. 6 months into the separation. I'd been doing better, or at least, I thought I had. I'd started exercising again. Cooking real meals instead of surviving on takeout. My therapist said I was making progress. I was starting to believe her. My best friend had left his jacket at my place after our last dinner. It was getting cold, and I knew he'd need it. I was driving by his apartment complex anyway. There was a pet supply store nearby, so I figured I'd drop it off. I didn't call ahead. Why would I? I'd shown up unannounced at his place 100 times over 15 years. I pulled into the visitor parking lot, and that's when I saw it. My wife's car. The silver Honda Civic with a small dent on the rear bumper from when she backed into a mailbox 2 years ago. The "I brake for animals" sticker that I'd bought her as a joke that she'd actually put on her car. My first thought, and I hate myself for this, was concern. Was something wrong? Was she there because something had happened to him? That's how much I trusted them both. Even seeing her car at his apartment, my first instinct was worry, not suspicion. I sat in my car for maybe 5 minutes. I watched his window. The lights were on. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. And slowly, like waking from a dream, pieces started falling into place. The way she'd known about the separation before I'd told anyone else. The way he always seemed to know how she was doing. The times he'd cancel plans at the last minute, always with an excuse that seemed reasonable in isolation but formed a pattern when viewed together. The way she'd started talking about needing space around the same time he started coming around more often. I didn't go up. I couldn't. I drove home in a fog, and I sat in my empty living room, and I waited for the sun to come up. Because I needed to be sure. I needed to hear it from them. I called him the next morning. Asked if I could come by to talk. He said sure, his voice completely normal, completely casual. The voice of my best friend who had been sleeping with my wife for 6 months while telling me to be patient. I sat on his couch, different from mine, but somehow the same in the ways that mattered, and I looked at him and I said, "How long?" He could have pretended not to understand. He could have bought himself time. But something in my face must have told him I already knew. I watched the color drain from his skin. I watched 15 years of friendship collapse in the silence between my question and his answer. 6 months, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. Since right after she moved out. Not before. That's what I held on to, later. Not before. It started after. As if that made it better. As if the timeline of betrayal changed anything about its existence. The marriage ending hurt. But him. That broke something I don't know how to fix. Update 2. The complexity of betrayal. Here's the part that makes this harder to tell. Here's the part that people won't want to hear. They weren't monsters. My wife didn't cackle with glee while destroying our marriage. My best friend didn't scheme to steal her away. That would almost be easier. A clear villain, a clean story, good versus evil. The truth is messier. The truth always is. After I asked, how long, there was a silence that stretched forever. Then he started talking. Crying, actually. He told me everything. More than I wanted to know. He said he'd gone to check on her a week after she moved out. Just to make sure she was okay, he said. Because I was his best friend, and she was my wife, and he wanted to help. They talked. She cried. He held her. And something shifted. I didn't plan it, he said, and I could hear the desperation in his voice, the need for me to believe him. I swear to God, I didn't plan any of this. It just happened. Things don't just happen. I know that. Choices were made, again and again, every time they saw each other, every time they touched, every time he picked up the phone to comfort me while knowing exactly where my wife was sleeping. But I also know that people are weak. That good people do terrible things. That he probably did care about me, even as he was destroying me. That's the part that keeps me up at night. Not the betrayal itself, but the complexity of it. The way he could hold both things in his heart at the same time, genuine love for me and genuine desire for her. The way she could tell me she needed space to find herself while finding herself in his arms. My wife tried to explain too, later, during the divorce proceedings. She said she hadn't meant for any of it to happen. She said she did love me once. She said she felt trapped in our marriage, suffocated by my expectations, invisible in the shadow of my career. She said he made her feel seen. I wanted to hate them. Pure, clean hatred would have been so much easier. Instead, I got this tangled mess of grief and anger and, God help me, understanding. I understood how it happened, even as I couldn't forgive it. Update 3. The legal battle. My wife asked for the divorce. I didn't fight it. What was there to fight for? A marriage built on lies? A partner who'd found what she was looking for in someone else's bed? But she didn't just want out. She wanted compensation. Her lawyer painted a picture of emotional abandonment. Years of neglect. A husband so consumed by his career that his wife withered from loneliness. She wanted half the house I'd bought before we were married, the house I'd poured my savings into, the house with the big backyard where I'd planned to someday have dogs of my own. She wanted alimony. She wanted to be the victim. I won't pretend I wasn't angry. I won't pretend I took the high road purely out of moral superiority. When I hired my lawyer, I wanted to win. Not for the money or the house. I wanted to win because it was the only thing I could control. I couldn't make my wife love me again. I couldn't undo my best friend's betrayal. But I could make damn sure the narrative of our marriage wasn't written by the person who destroyed it. My lawyer was a woman named, well, I'll call her my lawyer. She was efficient, unsentimental, and very good at her job. When I showed her the evidence, texts, photos, a timeline that clearly showed the affair began after we separated, not before, she smiled in a way that was almost predatory. The emotional abandonment argument falls apart, she said, when we can demonstrate that she wasn't alone. That she had significant emotional support during the separation. From your best friend. Every night, apparently. The divorce proceedings lasted 3 months. My wife's lawyer tried to argue that the affair was a symptom of our broken marriage, not a cause. My lawyer methodically dismantled that argument. She brought in my work schedule. Busy, yes, but not excessive. She brought in text messages showing my consistent efforts to communicate during the separation, efforts that were largely ignored. She brought in evidence that my wife had initiated the separation knowing she had someone, to go. In the end, I kept the house. No alimony. A clean break, legally speaking. I won the divorce. I lost my best friend. I lost my ability to believe people mean what they say. Some victories cost everything. Update 4. The aftermath. The first year after the divorce was the hardest. I threw myself into work. Took extra shifts. Volunteered at the shelter on weekends. Anything to avoid the empty house, the quiet evenings, the space where my life used to be. My best friend tried to reach out a few times. Letters. Emails. A voicemail on my birthday that I deleted without listening to. I heard through mutual friends that he and my ex-wife tried to make it work, that they dated openly once the divorce was final. I also heard it fell apart within a year. Apparently, relationships built on betrayal don't have the strongest foundations. Who knew? I'd like to say I found that satisfying. I'd like to say there was some sense of justice when I heard they'd broken up. But mostly I just felt tired. Tired and empty and so fundamentally changed that I wasn't sure who I was anymore. People say, you'll find someone better. I'm not sure I want to find anyone at all. That's the part that scares me. I did try dating, eventually. My therapist encouraged it. Not to find a replacement, she said, but to practice trusting again. So I went on dates. Coffee with a fellow veterinarian. Dinner with someone from a dating app. Drinks with a friend who was perfect for me. And each time, I felt myself pulling back. Watching for signs. Analyzing every word for hidden meanings. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. The fellow veterinarian mentioned she'd had coffee with an ex recently, and I felt my stomach clench with irrational fear. The woman from the app took a long time to respond to a text once, and I spent the entire afternoon convinced she was with someone else. The friend of a friend mentioned she needed space to think after our third date, and I nearly laughed out loud at the trigger. My therapist asks if I've considered dating again. I laugh. Not meanly, just honestly. How do you trust someone after this? I stopped dating after that. Told myself it was temporary. Told myself I just needed more time to heal. That was 2 years ago. Update 5. 3 years later. I'm 38 now. My practice is thriving. I recently expanded, brought in a partner, a younger vet who reminds me of myself 15 years ago. Full of hope, ready to save every animal that comes through the door. I don't have the heart to tell her that hope fades. That cynicism isn't a choice. It's a scar that forms whether you want it to or not. My house is still too big for one person. I finally got those dogs I always wanted. 2 rescues, a 3-legged German Shepherd mix named Nothing, names feel too personal for this story, and a one-eyed beagle. They're the only beings I trust completely. Animals don't lie. Animals don't betray. They love simply, honestly, without the capacity for the kind of cruelty humans specialize in. I still see my therapist every other week. We don't talk about the divorce much anymore. We talk about patterns. About walls. About the way I've structured my life to minimize vulnerability. She worries, I think, though she's too professional to say it directly. She worries that I've built a comfortable prison for myself. A life that's safe precisely because it's small. Sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I'd never driven by his apartment that day. If I'd never seen her car. Would they have told me eventually? Would she have come back to me? Would I have spent the rest of my marriage not knowing? I don't know which would be worse. Knowing destroyed me, but not knowing would have been its own kind of destruction. What I've learned. I want to tie this up neatly. I want to tell you that I've healed, that I've moved on, that the betrayal made me stronger. That's what people want to hear. That's the story we're supposed to tell. The truth is messier. I'm okay. Not happy exactly, but okay. I found a kind of peace in my solitude. I have meaningful work. I have my dogs. I have a small circle of friends, carefully chosen, kept at a careful distance. I've learned to enjoy my own company, to find satisfaction in quiet evenings and solo hikes and the simple pleasure of a life I control completely. But I'm also damaged in ways I don't think will ever fully heal. I still flinch when someone gets too close. I still analyze every interaction for signs of deception. I still wake up at 3 a.m. sometimes, replaying old conversations, looking for clues I missed. I ran into my ex-wife once, about a year ago. At a coffee shop, of all places. She looked good, healthy, calm, maybe even happy. She'd moved to a new city but was back visiting family. We exchanged awkward pleasantries. She said she was sorry, again. She said she hoped I was doing well. She said she thought about me sometimes, wondered how I was. I told her I was fine. I didn't tell her about the trust issues, the isolation, the way her betrayal had reshaped my entire understanding of human relationships. What would be the point? She'd made her choices. We'd both lived with the consequences. Some things don't need to be said. As for my former best friend, I've never spoken to him again. I heard he moved away, started over somewhere new. I hope he found whatever he was looking for. I hope he learned from what he did. But I can't be the one to witness his growth. Some wounds are too deep for reconciliation. The marriage ending hurt. But him. That broke something I don't know how to fix. Final thoughts. If you've read this far, I'm not sure what I want you to take away. I didn't write this for sympathy or validation. I wrote it because my therapist said it might help, and because maybe someone out there is going through something similar and needs to know they're not alone. To that person, I'd say this: you'll survive. It won't feel like it for a long time, but you'll survive. You might even thrive, in certain ways, in certain areas of your life. But you'll also carry this with you. The betrayal won't define you, but it will change you. It will shape the way you love, the way you trust, the way you let people in. Maybe that's damage. Maybe it's wisdom. I'm not sure there's a difference anymore. I used to believe that love meant vulnerability. That opening yourself completely to another person was the highest form of connection. I don't believe that anymore. I believe in protection now. In walls and boundaries and careful emotional management. Maybe that makes me cynical. Maybe it makes me broken. But it also keeps me safe. And after what I've been through, safety feels like enough. I won the divorce. I kept the house, avoided alimony, walked away with my finances intact. But I lost my best friend. I lost my ability to believe people mean what they say. I lost the version of myself who could trust without reservation, who could love without fear. Some victories cost everything. My dogs are getting restless. It's time for their evening walk. They're waiting by the door, tails wagging, eyes bright with uncomplicated joy. That's what I love about them. Their happiness is simple. Their loyalty is unconditional. They'll never betray me. They'll never need space to find themselves. I used to think I wanted a full life, a wife, children, a house full of noise and chaos and love. Now I want quiet. I want predictability. I want to come home to creatures who are simply, honestly glad to see me. Maybe that's giving up. Maybe it's giving in. Or maybe it's just adaptation. Survival of the emotionally fittest. I don't know what my future holds. Maybe I'll meet someone someday who makes me want to try again. Maybe the walls will come down, slowly, with time and patience and the right person. My therapist seems to think it's possible. She's more optimistic than I am. For now, I'm okay with where I am. I'm okay with my dogs and my practice and my careful, controlled life. I'm okay with the quiet. I'm okay with being alone. Not happily. Just peacefully. And maybe that's enough. Maybe peace is what victory looks like when you've lost everything else. Maybe this is what survival feels like on the other side of betrayal. My therapist says healing isn't linear. That there will be good days and bad days. That one day I might wake up and realize I'm ready to trust again. I'm not there yet. I'm not sure I ever will be. But I'm still here. Still breathing. Still getting up every morning and doing work that matters. Still capable of love, even if it's only for 2 rescue dogs who ask nothing of me except food and walks and the occasional belly rub. Maybe that's enough. Maybe, for someone like me, that's everything. Edit. Thank you for the support. I didn't expect this to resonate with so many people. To those who've reached out with your own stories of betrayal, I see you. I hear you. We're all just trying to survive this, aren't we? One day at a time. One careful step at a time. To those asking if I've considered forgiving them, I have. My therapist and I have discussed it many times. Forgiveness isn't about them, she says. It's about me. About letting go of the anger so it doesn't poison me. I'm working on it. Slowly. Some days I think I'm almost there. Other days I wake up at 3 a.m., replaying every conversation, every lie, every moment of trust that was being systematically destroyed while I was too naive to see it. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive them. But I'm trying to forgive myself. For not seeing it. For trusting too completely. For being the kind of person who believes the best in people. Maybe that's where the healing starts. Not with them. With me. Here's what I learned from losing my wife and my best friend in the same betrayal. Some wounds heal into scars, and some wounds just become part of who you are. I keep replaying every conversation. Every time he said, "She'll come back, just give her time." Every time he hugged me while I cried about losing her. He knew. He knew the whole time where she was sleeping, whose arms she was finding herself in. And he held me anyway, told me to be patient anyway, pretended to be my lifeline while pulling me underwater. The marriage ending hurt. But him. That broke something I don't know how to fix. They weren't monsters. That's the part that makes this impossible to process cleanly. My wife didn't scheme to destroy me. My best friend didn't plan to steal her. They fell into it, that's what they said. As if gravity was responsible. As if choices weren't made, again and again, every time they touched, every time he picked up the phone to comfort me while knowing exactly where she'd been the night before. Good people do terrible things. He probably did care about me, even as he was destroying me. She probably did love me, once. That complexity doesn't make the betrayal hurt less. It makes it hurt more. Clean villains are easy to hate. Real people are impossible to untangle. I won the divorce. Kept the house. No alimony. Clean break, legally speaking. My lawyer dismantled every argument they made. On paper, I came out ahead. But I lost my best friend of 15 years. I lost my ability to believe people mean what they say. I lost the version of myself who could trust without reservation, who could love without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Some victories cost everything. My therapist asks if I've considered dating again. I laugh, not meanly, just honestly. How do you trust someone after this? Every time someone mentions an ex, my stomach clenches. Every delayed text feels like proof of betrayal. Every request for space triggers a panic I can't control. I stopped trying. Told myself it was temporary. That was 2 years ago. People say, "You'll find someone better." I'm not sure I want to find anyone at all. That's the part that scares me. I have my dogs now. 2 rescues who ask nothing of me except food and walks and the occasional belly rub. They love simply, honestly, without the capacity for the kind of cruelty humans specialize in. Animals don't lie. Animals don't betray. Maybe that's why I became a veterinarian in the first place. I just didn't know it yet. I've built a life that's safe precisely because it's small. My therapist calls it a comfortable prison. Maybe she's right. But after what I've been through, safety feels like enough. I ran into my ex-wife a year ago. She said she was sorry. She said she hoped I was doing well. I told her I was fine. I didn't tell her about the trust issues, the isolation, the 3 a.m. replays of every conversation looking for clues I missed. What would be the point? Some things don't need to be said. Forgiveness isn't about them, my therapist says. It's about letting go so the anger doesn't poison me. I'm working on it. Slowly. Some days I think I'm almost there. Other days I wake up in the dark and I'm right back in that parking lot, staring at her car, feeling my whole world tilt sideways. Maybe healing isn't linear. Maybe some of us just learn to walk with a limp. I'm not happy. But I'm peaceful. And maybe peace is what victory looks like when you've lost everything else. My dogs are waiting by the door. Tails wagging. Eyes bright with uncomplicated joy. That's enough. For someone like me, maybe that's everything.